Merry Christmas. Welcome to Northpointe Plus, the podcast that happens after the message, except it's before Christmas, and so we're filming in advance, so we're all confused. However, we are ready for Christmas.
We look ready for Christmas.
We're ready for Christmas.
Yeah. Besides me, I didn't get the memo.
Jenna is hatless. She missed the Santa hat message and the Ohio State gear.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if I could rep Ohio State as
Well,
best as you guys.
nobody cares about this, what we're like talking Ohio State at this moment now. But Ohio State is playing Missouri in the bowl game. Why
Yes.
Ohio State's playing Missouri? Because there's some, there are fans of other sports teams in the state who
That's
are
true.
screaming at their monitor or wherever they're listening to this right now. And we don't care, okay? I'm just going to tell you, I'm bitter and I don't care. And I know what you're thinking as you're that other school's fan. And I just don't hear you. I'm ignoring you right now. I'm in
however,
denial.
this works since Jenna is from Missouri.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Now pick on Jenna.
That's right.
Make
She's
me feel better
Caught
about my
in between
fandom.
us.
Well, what's funny is I actually don't like the Mizzou. Like Mizzou.
Oh, really?
Not a fan. I've never been as a kid.
Oh.
I hated it. I was like,
That's because Mizzou is in Columbia on the opposite side of the state as Kansas City, where you're from. No, it's in the Northeast. Wait, where is Mizzou?
Hey, welcome to Geography on
Geography
Northpointe
lesson.
Plus.
Missouri geography
Hey.
at that.
our degree is not in geography, so I think we're doing pretty good. Right?
Huh.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think through, because I've been on campus before,
Yeah, it's about 2-hour drive from Kansas City.
but it's to the east. It's in the,
It's close to the middle.
oh, yeah, I guess
It's
so.
a 4-hour drive to.
This
Oh,
is
well.
fantastic
I-
podcasting right now. This
I'm
is so
driving
good.
to Kansas
Compelling
City for
stuff.
Christmas, so
Merry
I'm, like,
Christmas.
thinking all that. Yeah.
Merry Christmas. So, Jake,
Hey,
you preached on Sunday, on Christmas Eve.
Christmas Eve.
How'd it go?
It went really well considering it's the Tuesday before Christmas Eve. It went fantastic. I can say that in there. The funny part would be if like something goes really bad and then watch this podcast. Like that would be funny. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm excited though. I am excited. I think Christmas Eve is a fun thing. It's one of those things like Christmas and Easter. There's not a lot of surprises.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You know, what
story
we're gonna
never
talk about.
changes.
It never changes, and we talk about it every year. But that's because the story is so amazing. There's something so special and obviously unique about it. And so being able to talk about the birth of Jesus, which is a unique birth story
Yeah.
with a unique child on top
Right.
of it, because we all have a birth story, right? Even our own birth story, or if you have kids, a birth story, or maybe a niece or nephew. And when kids are born, like that's a part of it. You tell the story of how they were born, and Jesus has a wild one
Yeah.
in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And then to go through that, but then to recognize it's not just a cool story. It's this amazing thing about Emmanuel, God coming with us, that really is what takes that birth story and the birth of Jesus to a whole nother level.
Yeah. For me, every year, just talking back through Christmas, the whole concept of Christmas and making it fresh is interesting because I always come back personally to the whole Emmanuel thing.
Yeah.
The concept of God with us, which is what Emmanuel means, that's the thing that's the hardest to wrap our brains around, is to think about the magnitude that God would leave heaven and earth and come to earth in the form of a dependent baby, completely dependent on Mary and Joseph. And so what I wanted to do, again, we're filming this ahead of time, but I thought it'd be a good thing to just talk about the series as a whole. So this whole concept of a vintage Christmas, experiencing Christmas like the first time, as if it's the first time. For many of us, we've known the Christmas story since we were young. Hear it every year. When you talk about speaking, it's like, okay, how do I talk about this in a way that's fresh? But for some, it really is being heard for the first time. So, Miss Jenna, just talk a little bit about your story growing up, not necessarily knowing Jesus, and then how Christmas kind of came into that.
Yeah, so I was not raised going to church. I kind of joke that I was a VBS only kid. That was the only time I went, and that was mainly because my aunt Jody worked. That's what she did for a living. Was she literally put on these huge VBSs, and that's what she did. So I've learned a lot. So that was basically my only church experience. And so, but my Aunt Jody eventually left that job. And after that, it was just Jesus wasn't talked about ever. And I think that ended when I was 5 years old. And let's be real, I don't remember anything past 5th grade. So of like those memories, because you're a kid, you don't, remember those things. But growing up, I was very, very big into Santa. And if you have kids around, I'm going to talk a little bit about Santa. And so just forewarning. And that was my Christmas, was making cookies on Christmas Eve, going to my grandparents' house every single Christmas night, spending the night making cookies. And one year we made cherry donuts. And
For Santa?
For Santa. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. And it had to be the right amount of milk, the right amount of cookies. We had to make sure he was fed. We always made sure there was carrots for the reindeers and everything. I love Santa still to this day. One of my favorite things. And I think that's just because that's how I was raised. And it wasn't until I was in 5th grade I found out Santa wasn't real. And I was devastated, slammed my door shut, and I just broke. I was like, I'm never talking to you ever again, Mom.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, I was so mad. And people might find this funny. The main reason why my mother told me was because I was fighting kids at school. Because they were like, Santa's not real. Santa's not real. And I go,
Santa's pummeling people.
and I'm like, Santa's real. And I was so passionate. And I'm the youngest grandkid. And so keeping that magic alive for our family was so important. And it came to an end. But after we found out Santa wasn't real, Christmas just went downhill from there. There was 0 point for Christmas after Santa. There was there's no point. But so we still did Christmas. We still did stockings. And it was kind of the joke with my mom because my 2 other cousins, Kobe and Kelsey, I don't think they did stockings after I found out, just because the magic's dead. My mom still did it. She said, you get it till you're 18. So the joke was, thank you, Santa, as I would open up. And that was just kind of our joke. But yeah, Christmas had 0 point after Santa was... the truth was found out that Santa is your parents.
So when did you hear the Christmas story?
Yeah.
The real Christmas story, like hint of it for the first time?
I think a hint of it. I think we always knew. I can't even remember truly remembering.
There was something about
kid.
Jesus.
Yeah, it was the prayer before you eat type of thing, and that was it. And that's mainly because of my grandfather is Mormon, but in our family, faith is very much it's your choice. We're not going to push it on you. So I'm the only grandkid of mine that I know is a Christian, and just because that's just how we were raised. Your choice is your choice of what you would like to do for your life and what you'd like to believe in. So I think hearing the Christmas story for the first time, you hear it, but did I understand it? No, I probably thought it was the same thing as Santa, honestly. It's just the story, same thing that you read on Christmas, if anything. But I truly don't remember the first time as a kid hearing it. The first time as a Christian hearing it, that changed my life.
What was that like after you'd become a follower of Jesus, and then you come into the Christmas season and hear for the first time with fresh eyes?
So when we were talking about what that was like for me, I kept journals of my faith, and I still do it, of writing just memories and things that I'm learning and struggles and all these things. And I flipped because to this day I still remember that Christmas Eve of sitting in my grandma's upstairs in my room, journaling and reading and watching sermons. And I remember I went back and I looked at it, and it said, this will be the first Christmas I get to experience as a Christian. Wow. And it was, in it there, and I put, there's so much joy and peace. And the reason is because it's Jesus is around. And I just don't think people to this day realize what it's like to truly hear and know the Christmas story for the first time.
Yeah,
I'm not going to cry.
I'll give you a chance to gather yourself, because I had a conversation after the message on the 17th with someone who said that they can remember in high school hearing the story about Jesus for the very first time and just thinking, wait, that's incredible, and that changes everything. Yeah. how significant it was to hear about that for the very first time. So how was that Christmas different?
I think it was mainly different was because for the first time, I had zero desire for gifts. And if you ever see my home videos as a kid, my mom recorded every little moment. So every single Christmas is recorded. And so you see lines and piles of gifts. I mean, my grandmother has a big downstairs living room. It is from the TV all the way to basically the middle of the living room. It's just presents. And it's for like maybe 8 people. But that's just my family. We love Christmas. And so I'm opening all these gifts, and I always have all these gifts. I'm just like, man, like none of this matters. None of it, none of the gifts. What matters is being around family and knowing why we do this. And it's because of the sacrifice that Jesus did on the cross and what God is doing in saving us. And it was hard because my family didn't have that realization yet.
Yeah.
And so it's that, and it's still to this day. Christmas is never the same.
Yeah.
Just because my family is so mixed in cultures and beliefs. And so, yeah.
So, I mean, it's a really cool thing, and just as you were talking there, to recognize that Christmas is not the end of the story. Mm-hmm. It's not fully the beginning of the story, because you have to go all the way back to Genesis for the beginning of the story. But it really is, it's like that moment in time where like, oh, wow, everything is going to be different from this point forward in preparation for the conclusion. So, yeah. So, Jake, you've got 3 little girls at home.
Yeah.
And
the coffee that gave it away.
What's it like for you in trying to communicate the story of the birth of Jesus to little girls that are under the age of 5?
Yeah, it's so funny. We were talking about this earlier today about Christmas stories, because we don't live in that culture that the true Christmas story is in media as much as it was years ago. You know, the classic Charlie Brown, Lights Please, reading scripture. Like, you don't have that on TV with all the streaming services and stuff like that. But there's a Christmas episode for every kid's show. You know, so there's the Gabby's Dollhouse, there's the Peppa Pig, there's the
Gabby's Dollhouse?
Tiger.
I don't know Gabby's Dollhouse.
You don't want to know Gabby's Dollhouse.
I do know Peppa Pig.
Yeah. Oh, I wish I didn't.
Is there a Bluey Christmas episode?
There's 2.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Veranda Santa and Christmas Swim. It so hurts me that I know that. But I do. And we play Veranda Santa. We reenact that episode of Bluey in our home. You know what I mean? So, like, there are a lot of competing things for what Christmas is supposed to be like in this mixed messaging for our kids all of the time. And I'm not here to say, like, oh, that's terrible. Don't ever, like, let them do those things, da-da-da-da. Not at all. You know, I love watching Christmas movies that don't have anything to do with Jesus necessarily, because Christmas Vacation is funny to me. You know, like all of those kinds of things, right? But there has to be some intentionality on our point of being able to talk through these things. So when we talk about with Santa, you know, with Addie especially, she's by the time this podcast comes out, 5 years old now.
Yeah.
And you know, she's getting to that age where she's trying to grasp some of these different concepts a little bit more and find out what's true, what's not, and how much I can trust mom and dad. And so we talk to her about Santa, and we tell her, hey, it's a fun character, just like Elsa is, and just like Mickey is, or just like Bluey is, and like all of those kinds of things. And it's great to play pretend with these kinds of things. It's fun to be able to do. But we're very intentional about bringing her back and really using scripture through kids' Bibles all the time and being able to go through and talk about these pieces. Another thing that we found that really seems to resonate and connect, and I think this is true of all people, but I love seeing it with the impressionability of little kids.
Yeah.
It's music.
Oh,
It's music, you know, and because she knows and sings not just like "We Wish You a Merry Christmas" or "Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer." She knows the words to more like Christmas hymns. You know, our songs about that. And so that kind of seeds into her brain a little bit more. So we balance those things out. We've done chocolate Advent things every morning, and then 6 times during the afternoon, they're asking for the chocolate from the Advent calendar kind of thing. But being able to talk through and really just figure out what's the right rhythm in your home, and then being able to intentionally place those moments through and continually, like as with kids and adults, repetition kind of stuff. So
That's cool.
it's fun. It is a lot of fun, though. We balance both of them out. We don't do the whole Santa thing, but we acknowledge Santa and push Jesus.
Yeah. It is our tradition at Northpointe to do the candle lighting on Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
And why do we do that? Why is that significant? But now you're going to say, because Rick says we have to.
Yeah. Well, because fireworks on Christmas Eve didn't go very well.
Yeah.
That's why. But I think to me, at least growing up, I've always done candlelight services everywhere. There's a tradition feel to that, I think, for a lot of people. To me, it's the light of the world. That the light of the world is coming in, and then that visual of seeing one candle be lit, and then it gets passed to somebody else. And it's like, hey, we're celebrating on Christmas Eve the light that has come into the world. And then you take that light, and not only have you received that, but you're passing that on.
Along,
and when you stop and look on the darkness that was around in the room, that's illuminated throughout, like there's a powerful gospel message in that. And that's why I love candlelight, and I love Rio candles with it, because I love watching little kids dropping wax, number one, and the visual effect.
We're sorry for our custodian, Joe, for the wax every year that ends up.
He's the man. And he's not, at least not to like me, he's not complaining about it. He's a trooper. We love Joe. Joe's amazing. But that visual aid that puts on, and to end the night with that, and to walk out and just have that remembrance. I was looking on Facebook today, and I'm starting to see and feel myself all the stuff of like, man, I don't feel that Merry Christmas right now coming into the end closer to Christmas, because there's so many things to do.
Right.
So many get-togethers, so many gifts, so many things to wrap, so many displays to go see, all of those kinds of things, which are good, right? They're great things. But Christmas Eve service allows you to pause.
Right.
All of that. And just ground yourself, and being a part of that Christmas Eve service. It's like that moment on into Christmas for me every year is like a refresher. It's a stabilizer. We've got so many birthdays even in December. It is a chaotic month, right?
Yeah.
It is really nuts in our house. But to get to Christmas Eve service and then experience Christmas with my family, like that 24, 48-hour window in that time period becomes very serene and very grounding, and it blocks out all the rest of the noise.
So as you're talking, I've got this image that I'm thinking, man, does this preach or not? It's kind of like the snow globe. So you've got the snow globe that has the manger scene there, and you shake it up, and it's got all the stuff floating in the air. And Christmas Eve is where the shaking stops, and everything just kind of settle. And at that point, you can really see what matters. You can see where it goes. So, Jenna, have you done candlelight services before?
What's funny is this is actually my first Christmas Eve service I've ever been to.
Nice.
Oh, man.
And that's just mainly because my family was like, you're coming to Grandma's.
Yeah.
And so this is my first ever Christmas Eve service.
And that will be good, but it'll be hard because you're not with your family.
Yeah, that has taken a toll, being vulnerable here.
Yeah.
I am newly graduated from college, single young adult living in Michigan.
A long way from Missouri.
A long way from home, and it is hard being away from family.
Yeah.
And it is a huge challenge, but I would not do this if I did not love Jesus.
Yeah.
And
I
that's so important to
get it. I mean, I remember when we grew up, Deb and I both grew up in Dayton. We went to college in Cincinnati. First church I was at full time was in Columbus, 50 miles away. So we were home for everything. And when we moved to Maryland, 550 miles away, and began to do holidays and stuff away, and to figure out what that looked like, that's just hard. Yeah. And I remember very clearly the first Christmas that we spent in Maryland, excuse me, how difficult that was for me. we that particular year we did a Christmas program at the church called Home for Christmas, and I can remember as I'm conducting the choir, tears coming as we're singing Home for Christmas, Home for Christmas, and thinking I'm not going to be home for Christmas.
Yeah.
And it's hard, and yet there also is something that's really healthy in that it really does help clarify again what Christmas really is.
Yeah.
That as important as family is, Christmas is not about family. That's not the core of it.
Right.
And so it really does help bring some perspective. And let me come back to Jake in a second. Sorry, I'm still having trouble.
And eggnog's really going through.
Yeah, it's the eggnog. So that first Christmas that we were in Maryland, it was because our daughter Gabrielle had been born at the end of November.
Oh, yeah.
And that was a really special Christmas because we're holding this newborn. At that point, she's 6 weeks old or whatever, and just thinking about the power of God in the form of a baby. So Addie was born on Christmas Eve.
She was born on the 23rd, so we just talked about, however we want to say it, on Christmas Eve service, a little bit about that idea of a baby being born, because we got to experience, and like how I've said on Christmas Eve, I've made every Christmas Eve service my entire life except for one, and it was the one where we brought Addie home on Christmas Eve from the hospital, and how surreal that feeling really was of not just like becoming a dad for the first time, and how much this little baby has changed my world and like my feelings, my emotions, the weight of responsibility, all of that. Holding this little baby girl, this fresh child in my arms, and then waking up on Christmas Day, experiencing it too, and how alive that made Christmas when you think back to the original Christmas, the vintage Christmas story of Jesus, and like, man, this was a world-changing child. Like, it didn't just change Mary and Joseph's world. This child changed the entire world.
Yeah.
And like the gravity of that. And I remember processing and going through all of that on that first Christmas in my mind. And so every year, I begin to remember that and think of that as pictures are displayed, and her like this little stocking we stuffed her in, and like all those kinds of things of a baby that changed the world. Because I had a baby that changed my world at Christmas.
Right.
A baby that changed the entire world at Christmas. Like, that was just a cool thing to kind of grasp my mind around.
So did you and Ashley sleep at all that night?
I don't think we slept for like 3 days coming in, because like late night into the labor story there, into staying up once she was born in the hospital with her, and then coming home with her. So it was literally like a 72 hours that I think we only had like 5 hours of sleep, and then it's Christmas Day.
Well, that's so funny because like for anybody who's had kids, when you bring them home from the hospital that first night, it's like, are they still breathing?
Oh,
are they alive?
Yeah. All the time. Yeah.
And to think Mary and Joseph had to experience that too in a stable, in a barn.
Yeah.
Is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else from the sermon Sunday?
No. Yeah. You guys haven't even heard it. We kind of touched on a lot of it. So, no, I don't think so. Hopefully you guys were able to, as this podcast has come out, experience a piece of that through Christmas time. It's okay to let that kind of meander a little bit more, I think, too, beyond Christmas. As things are really slow, it feels like, in the world between Christmas and New Year, and we make that shift to kind of newness as the New Year comes along, and Christmas fades a little bit. I think being able to do as Mary did, and that's my favorite verse in the entire thing, is Mary pondered up these things. As we talked about before, the chaos surrounding Christmas, and Mary ponders. So you got to think, to me, that's probably that moment where the gravity of the situation begins to hit Mary. Having traveled, trying to find a place to be able to stay, now giving birth next to a cow and sheep and all these other animals, and then laying my child here, and I'm exhausted, right? Like, physically, I've got things going on, like all of that. And then people are showing up and they're worshiping this baby. And I think it's kind of that moment that it like clicked into Mary of like, this is Christ the Lord. Yeah. This isn't just a baby. This isn't just I think that's when it like began to click even for Mary, even more of like that moment Mary pondered in her heart when they showed up, because she's so ingrained in the moment If you've been around labor,
Yeah.
it's all hands on deck. And then for somebody to come in right after and say, we're here to see the Messiah, it's almost like, oh my goodness, yeah, this is the Messiah. And how that would have just changed her world then at that moment too. I love that verse. It's one of the most powerful verses in Scripture.
It really, when you unpack that and just think about what her pregnancy, like she had to, after the angel appeared to her and she says, may it be done to me just as you said, accepting God's decision to choose her to be the mom for the Savior of the world.
Yeah.
That with each day, as the life inside her grew, she had to, I think she had to just think multiple times, I wasn't dreaming. This is real.
Yeah.
Because I know where I've been and what I've done and what I haven't done.
Yeah.
This is real. And then as it moved forward, I don't know that she ever became comfortable, if you will. Like it was minute by minute, there's an awareness of the presence of God through that time until she gave birth. And then the shepherds come, and it
because that's really her second interaction of a supernatural instance in some way. She had the angel show up.
Yep.
Joseph had an angel show up.
Right.
But then, she has with Elizabeth, her
Yeah.
cousin, and Elizabeth says, oh, the baby's jumped in my belly. So she's seeing other people experience and kind of get on board. And there's probably some assurance in that. But then to think you've now gone 9 months and you haven't heard anything, and you know.
Right.
But it's still kind of like, this is weird, I don't know. And to have those shepherds show up and be that reminder of what has just occurred, I think that's a big moment for her.
Yeah. Do you think that she thought, this is the Son of God? I wonder, is this going to look like a baby? It's like a Men in Black kind of moment.
Yeah, exactly. What's happening here? Yeah. Is he going to have my eyes? Whose eyes is he going to have?
Yeah.
What is,
thought about that,
how much did baby Jesus look like Mary? I would assume so.
I've never thought about the genetic code of Jesus.
Yeah, because 100% God and 100% man. I imagine he's coming from the line of David. He's got that facial structure, features, all of the, you know what I mean? All of that. If they had a shorter thumb in the line of David, maybe Jesus had the shorter thumb or those kinds of things, whatever it might have been. But then he's got 100% God too. So it's this beautiful matchup that, and then to think, I think in some ways, because was it Simeon and
Anna.
Yeah, the Simeon and Anna, and they recognize.
Yeah, as soon as they walk in at 8 days old.
Yeah.
I can die now.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah, and to be able to recognize and see that something that's there, man, just all of that as little Jesus it's incredible to stop and process it and begin to think about all of the intricacies involved in that.
So Jenna, anything that you're looking forward to for your first Christmas Eve service, candlelight?
I think I'm just gonna soak it all in. I think, man, I'm crying. I don't want to cry. I think I'm gonna soak it all in and really have the reminder that I'm gonna experience Christmas for the first time in a different way.
That's cool.
And I'm just gonna soak it all in.
Thank you for being a part of this episode 120.
Nice.
Jake, you too. Thanks for speaking on Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
And thank you guys for watching. Like, share. You can share this with the hashtag that says Jenna Cries.
There you go.
Christmas matters. Christmas gets you in your heart. This is better. Hashtag better than Hallmark. How's that?
There you go.
I love Hallmark movies, though. I love Hallmark.
Thanks for watching, and have a Merry Christmas. Enjoy your time this week. Providing you're watching this after Christmas, just some downtime with your family. Let the presence of Jesus soak in and be a part of everything you think and do. We'll see you.